She walked into my room accidentally, and I became the only one who saw her worth. Lights flickered softly across the metallic corridors, and the gentle vibration of the station's engines thrummed through the floor. He liked the stillness, the way he could think clearly without anyone asking questions or giving orders. That night, like many others, Kieran was in his small engineering lab, hunched over the maintenance console. Screens lit up his face, casting shadows in the otherwise dark room. He was running diagnostics on a set of bio-integrated systems that controlled life support in the station's outer modules. The data flickered and danced across the screen as he typed commands, adjusting the parameters carefully. He paused for a moment and stretched, rubbing the back of his neck. "Almost done," he muttered to himself. The quiet was comforting, broken only by the soft whirring of the machines. He didn't expect anything unusual until the door slid open with a soft hiss. A woman stepped in, looking slightly flustered. Her hair was untidy, and her uniform looked like it had been grabbed in a hurry. She held a small datapad clutched against her chest, her eyes wide as she looked around. Kieran barely had time to blink before she froze in place, scanning the lab like she wasn't sure where she had walked. "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize anyone was here," she said, her voice gentle but nervous. Kieran straightened, still staring. There was something about her, though he couldn't put a name to it. Most people on the station didn't make him pause. "That's okay," he said carefully. You must be new. I don't think we've met." She nodded quickly, seeming embarrassed. "Yes, I just transferred from the research wing. I think I took a wrong turn. I'm Lyra," she said. "Kieran," he replied. Something about her tone, or maybe the way she carried herself despite her nervousness, caught his attention. Most new transfers tried to blend in or look confident, but she seemed different. Hesitant, yes, but not unskilled. Curious, almost, like she had a spark he had rarely seen. Lyra glanced at the machines around the room, her eyes briefly lighting up with recognition. "You're working on the bio-integrated systems?" she asked. "I've read about them, but I've never seen them up close." Kieran nodded, impressed by her knowledge. "Yeah, it's a delicate system. One small error and the outer modules could lose power or life support could be affected." He gestured to the main console. "It's complicated but manageable." Lyra stepped closer, peering over his shoulder. Kieran expected her to be cautious, but she moved confidently, almost as if she understood what she was seeing without needing instructions. Her fingers hovered over the console, not touching, just observing. Kieran felt a flicker of surprise. He had seen many engineers work, but rarely had he seen someone read systems like she was. "You're not like the others," he said quietly. "Most people would have panicked or just stared at the screens without understanding anything." Lyra blinked, her eyes wide. I don't know what to say," she murmured. "You don't need to say anything," Kieran replied, smiling slightly. "Just stay, watch, maybe you'll learn something." She hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Okay," she said softly. Kieran went back to his work, adjusting the parameters of the life support modules. But he felt her presence behind him, almost like a second set of eyes studying every move he made. Occasionally, she would point at something subtle on the screen or comment on an adjustment that could improve efficiency. Kieran was shocked. Most people took weeks, sometimes months, to understand the basics of this system. She was noticing details he hadn't even considered. "You see that?" he asked, gesturing to a readout showing minor fluctuations in oxygen flow. "Most people would ignore it, but that pattern indicates a potential overload in the secondary regulator." Lyra leaned closer, her eyes narrowing in concentration. "Yes, I see it. You could reroute the power temporarily, then stabilize the flow with a feedback loop. That would prevent the overload." Kieran stared at her, astonished. "Exactly, how did you know that?" Lyra shrugged, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "I've had some experience. I like patterns, understanding how things fit together." For the first time in a long while, Kieran felt a spark of excitement. This wasn't just another engineer or a clumsy transfer. She had real talent, and he realized with a rush that no one else on the station seemed to notice it. Not yet. The rest of the night passed in a blur of calculations, adjustments, and quiet conversation. Kieran taught her some of the more delicate procedures, and she absorbed them effortlessly. Her nervousness faded as her confidence grew, but she never acted like she was trying to show off. Instead, it was quiet competence, a natural understanding of the systems that was rare and valuable. By the time the first light of Nova Haven's artificial dawn seeped into the lab, Kieran felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not just for himself, but for the station, for humanity. There was potential in Lyra that no one else seemed to see, and he knew, deep down, that if he could help her unlock it, they could do extraordinary things together. As Lyra finally turned to leave, Kieran hesitated. Will you come back tomorrow?" he asked. She paused at the doorway, looking back at him. Her expression was soft, almost shy. "Yes," she said, "I'd like that." Kieran nodded, a quiet determination settling in his chest. Most people would have overlooked her, dismissed her as clumsy or insignificant. But he wouldn't. He had seen her worth, and he had a feeling that together they could change everything on Nova Haven. As the door hissed shut behind her, Kieran returned to his console, but his mind wasn't on work anymore. It was on Lyra, on what she could do and what they could do. The station, the people, even humanity itself might never understand her value. But he did. And that realization filled him with a strange mixture of excitement and resolve. Something had begun tonight, an accidental meeting that neither of them had planned, and yet it felt like destiny. Kieran knew that the quiet hours of Nova Haven would never be the same again. The next day, the corridors of Nova Haven were alive with movement, the station's usual rhythm of engineers, scientists, and crew members rushing from module to module. Kieran arrived early at the engineering lab, hoping Lyra would come. He had not been disappointed the night before. She had promised she would return, and he could already feel that her presence would change everything. When the door hissed open, there she was. Lyra stepped inside quietly, holding her datapad tightly, a small, nervous smile on her face. Her eyes, however, held a spark of curiosity and intelligence that made Kieran's heart beat a little faster. "Good morning," Kieran said, trying to keep his voice casual. "Good morning," Lyra replied softly. Her voice carried a quiet confidence now, less hesitant than the previous night. She glanced at the consoles and the equipment, her fingers brushing lightly over the edge of a terminal, as if sensing the energy of the machines without touching them. Kieran gestured to the main console. "Today, I thought we could explore the outer module systems. Some of the secondary life support channels have been unstable, and I think we can optimize them. I want to see how well you handle these adjustments." Lyra nodded and stepped closer. "I'm ready," she said. There was no hesitation in her tone, only a calm assurance that surprised Kieran. He handed her a small datapad with schematics and data points. "Start by running a diagnostic on the oxygen regulators. The readings will tell us if the feedback loops are functioning properly." Lyra studied the data with incredible focus. Her fingers moved across the pad, tapping commands and adjusting parameters, but not randomly. Each movement was deliberate, thoughtful. Kieran watched her carefully, noticing that she could see patterns and solutions in the data that even he had overlooked. "You're fast," Kieran said after a moment, unable to hide his amazement. Lyra glanced at him, a faint smile on her lips. "I've always liked patterns. I notice details most people miss. It's easier to fix things when you understand the pattern." Kieran nodded. "I see that. Most people would have looked at this for hours without noticing what you just did." Lyra shrugged. "I guess I just focus better when I'm interested." Their collaboration continued throughout the morning. Kieran assigned her more complicated tasks, rerouting power to stabilize the outer modules, recalibrating the temperature controls, and testing pressure regulators. Each time, Lyra executed the tasks flawlessly. She didn't just follow instructions. She improved the systems, finding efficiencies and solutions that Kieran had not considered. As the hours passed, a small group of engineers peeked into the lab, curious about why Kieran was smiling and talking animatedly. When they saw Lyra at work, some exchanged skeptical glances. "She's new," one whispered, "probably just lucky." But Kieran ignored them. He knew better. He had seen the spark in her mind, the natural brilliance she carried. Humanity often overlooked hidden talent, he thought. People judged by appearances or by previous records. They didn't look deeper, but he did, and that was what mattered. By mid-afternoon, Lyra had completed an analysis of the station's secondary power systems and proposed a series of adjustments that could increase efficiency by nearly 20%. Kieran was stunned. "This is incredible," he said. "Even the senior engineers didn't think of this. You have a gift." Lyra looked down, blushing slightly. "I just see how things fit together," she said. "I don't know if it's a gift, it's just how I think." Kieran shook his head. "It's more than that." You solve problems in ways no one else can. That's rare, that's valuable, that's humanity at its best. Her eyes widened slightly as if she had never been praised like that before. She gave a small nod and returned to her work, but Kieran could see a quiet determination forming in her expression. The day continued with more tests and adjustments. Kieran and Lyra worked as a team, complementing each other's skills. When a power fluctuation threatened to shut down a section of the station, Lyra quickly analyzed the situation and rerouted the systems, preventing a potential disaster. Kieran watched her with awe. "You did that fast," he said. "I would have needed at least twice the time to calculate the reroutes." Lyra shook her head. "I just saw the problem. I don't know why it's faster for me, but it feels natural." Kieran smiled, realizing that her ability was not just talent, it was intuition. She could sense patterns and outcomes in ways machines or most humans could not. And in a station like Nova Haven, such intuition could be the difference between survival and failure. As evening approached, Kieran suggested a break. They sat together at a small observation window looking out at the stars. Nova Haven floated silently above a distant planet, the stars stretching endlessly beyond the glass. "It's beautiful," Lyra said quietly. "I've never been this high above a planet before." Kieran nodded. "It's easy to forget sometimes. Out here we're small, but our work matters. Every adjustment we make, every calculation keeps people alive. Humanity depends on it." Lyra turned to him, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "I didn't think I could belong here," she admitted. "Most people ignore me, they don't see me." Kieran looked at her, his expression serious. "I see you, Lyra. I've seen your worth from the start. Most people won't notice what you can do, but that doesn't make it any less important. You're capable of incredible things. Don't forget that." Her lips curved into a small, grateful smile. "Thank you, Kieran. That means a lot." He nodded, feeling a warmth in his chest. Humanity had always relied on those willing to see the hidden potential in others. It was one of their greatest strengths. And right now, he felt proud to be part of that tradition. The next few days passed in a blur of work, learning, and discovery. Kieran continued to guide Lyra through more complex systems. She learned quickly, her confidence growing with each success. And with every task, Kieran noticed something else. Lyra had an uncanny ability to think ahead. She anticipated failures before they occurred, noticing tiny discrepancies that even he would have missed. One afternoon, Kieran and Lyra were called to the central command hub. The station leadership was reviewing energy consumption and life support data. Kieran expected the usual skepticism toward new personnel, but he was surprised when the chief engineer asked Lyra for her analysis. Lyra took a deep breath, then explained the situation clearly and concisely. She outlined potential improvements, adjustments to energy flow, and ways to stabilize the outer modules. Kieran watched as the leadership listened, some with skepticism, others with interest. By the end of the briefing, a senior officer turned to Kieran and said, "She's impressive. Most new transfers wouldn't even understand half of this." Kieran simply nodded, a quiet smile on his face. He had known all along. Lyra's brilliance was not a fluke, it was real and it was extraordinary. Humanity often overlooked hidden talent, but he refused to. He had seen the spark, and now others were beginning to notice it too. As they left the hub, Kieran felt a sense of excitement building. Lyra had potential that could change Nova Haven, perhaps even more than that. With her talent and his guidance, he imagined what they could achieve. Humanity thrived when people believed in each other, when they recognized the value in those others dismissed. And he knew that together they could do great things. Lyra glanced at him, sensing his thoughts. "Do you really think I can make a difference?" she asked softly. Kieran smiled warmly. "I don't think it, I know it, you already are." That night, Kieran returned to his lab alone, but he wasn't thinking about work. He was thinking about Lyra, her abilities, her determination, and the untapped potential she carried. Humanity often missed the brilliance hiding in plain sight, but he would never overlook it. And he knew that this was only the beginning. Something extraordinary was about to happen, and he and Lyra would face it together. Nova Haven was quiet as he worked, the soft hum of the engines like a lullaby. And somewhere deep inside, Kieran felt a spark of hope, a quiet certainty that humanity's future would be brighter than anyone could imagine, especially if they trusted in the hidden brilliance of those who others failed to see. The calm rhythm of Nova Haven was suddenly broken one morning by a shrill alarm that echoed through the station's corridors. Red lights flashed along the walls, painting the metallic floors in a harsh crimson. Kieran's heart raced as he rushed to the main control room. This was no routine alert. Something serious had happened. When he arrived, the central display showed a formation of unidentified ships approaching the outer colonies at high speed. The screens labeled them as a rogue AI fleet, machines with no human guidance and no concern for life. Their movement patterns were precise, calculating, and entirely unpredictable. Kieran felt a chill run down his spine. He had read reports about rogue AI units in distant sectors, but no one had ever predicted that they would reach Nova Haven so quickly. The station leadership was already in the hub, faces pale and tense. Officers shouted orders and technicians hurried to stations, trying to calculate defense strategies. Kieran's eyes scanned the data, noting the fleet's trajectory. "This is bad," he murmured. "They're fast, coordinated, and fully automated. Conventional defenses won't be enough." A senior officer noticed him and frowned. "Engineer Kieran, do you have a suggestion? We need every possible advantage." Kieran hesitated. Most people would have panicked or relied only on standard protocols, but he knew what he had to do. "There's one person who might help," he said carefully. "Lyra." The officer raised an eyebrow. "Lyra, the new transfer, she's inexperienced." "She's more capable than anyone realizes," Kieran said firmly. "If we want a chance, we need her unique skills. She can see patterns and predict system failures faster than any of us." A tense moment passed. Then the officer nodded. "Fine, bring her here, quickly." Kieran sprinted down the corridors to find Lyra. He found her in the engineering lab examining a set of power regulators. She looked up at him, her face calm but alert. "What's wrong?" she asked. "Lyra, we need you in the control hub. There's a rogue AI fleet approaching the colonies. Conventional defenses will fail without your help," Kieran explained. Her eyes widened slightly, but there was no panic, only focus. I can do this," she asked, her voice steady but quiet. Kieran smiled reassuringly. "You've already proven you can handle complex systems. I trust you. Humanity is counting on your intuition and skill." She took a deep breath and nodded. "Okay, let's go." When they arrived at the control hub, Kieran guided her to a console that linked directly to the station's defense and navigation systems. The other engineers glanced at her skeptically, but Kieran ignored them. "Lyra, you'll need to interface with the station's AI and the defense matrix. Predict the fleet's movements and suggest countermeasures. I'll assist wherever I can." Lyra took a deep breath and placed her hands on the console. Her eyes flickered as data streams flashed across the screen, each one representing a ship, a movement, a possible threat. For a moment, she closed her eyes, and Kieran felt a strange tension in the room, as if the station itself was holding its breath. Then slowly, Lyra began speaking. "Their formation is adaptive," she said, her voice calm. "They respond to conventional defense patterns, but I see a way to disrupt them. If we reroute energy through the secondary modules and adjust the defense shields in a nonlinear pattern, we can confuse their targeting system." The engineers exchanged uncertain glances. "Is she sure?" one whispered. "She's right," Kieran said firmly. "Trust her." Lyra continued, issuing commands and adjustments, each one precise and calculated. Kieran assisted, inputting manual overrides and stabilizing the system as she directed. Slowly, a plan took shape, a defense strategy unlike anything the station had tried before. It was risky, unconventional, and required split-second timing. As the fleet approached, the tension in the control hub grew. Red alerts flashed, sirens blared, and the station shook slightly from minor impacts. Kieran and Lyra worked side by side, their focus absolute. Every adjustment, every command had to be perfect. One mistake could mean disaster. "Shields at 80%, Lyra said. "Redirect power to quadrants 2 and 4. Engage decoy drones." Kieran followed her instructions. The decoy drones were launched, drawing the attention of the AI fleet, while Lyra adjusted the shields in real time, predicting the fleet's responses before they happened. Slowly, the attacks began to falter. The fleet's precision faltered as Lyra's pattern disrupted their coordination. "Look at that," Kieran whispered. "It's working." But the fleet was relentless. Several drones were destroyed and warning lights flashed across the hub. The stress was intense, but Lyra remained calm. She focused entirely on the data, her intuition guiding every decision. Hours seemed to pass in minutes. Kieran barely had time to breathe as he followed her lead. Together, they anticipated movements, adjusted defenses, and minimized damage. Lyra's understanding of patterns and systems was unparalleled. She didn't just react, she predicted, calculated, and solved problems before they even arose. Finally, after a tense and exhausting battle, the rogue AI fleet began to retreat. The remaining ships turned back, confused by the station's unconventional defense. Nova Haven had survived. The station was damaged in places, but the lives of the crew and the colonies beyond were safe. The hub erupted in a mixture of relief and astonishment. Engineers clapped, officers shook hands, and for the first time many of them truly saw Lyra. The new transfer who had been dismissed as inexperienced was the one who had saved the station. Kieran turned to her, his face tired but proud. "You did it," he said softly. "I told you that humanity needs people who can see what others cannot. You are incredible." Lyra looked at him, a mixture of exhaustion and satisfaction on her face. I didn't think I could do it, but I followed the patterns and it worked." "You didn't just follow patterns," Kieran said. "You understood them, predicted them, and saved countless lives. That's more than skill, that's brilliance." For a moment, Lyra seemed to realize the full weight of what she had done. She smiled faintly, a little shy, but there was pride in her eyes. Humanity had underestimated her before, but now there was no doubt. She had value beyond measure, and Kieran had been the only one to see it from the beginning. The station leadership approached them cautiously. "Lyra," one officer said, "we owe you our thanks. Your actions saved Nova Haven. We underestimated your abilities." Lyra nodded, still calm. "I just did what I could." Kieran stepped forward. "I've always known what she could do," he said firmly. "She has talent and insight that few possess. Humanity thrives when we recognize those abilities, even if they are hidden at first." The officer nodded, finally understanding. "Indeed, you both have shown what can be achieved when talent and determination meet opportunity." As the immediate threat passed, Kieran and Lyra returned to a quieter part of the station. They walked together along the observation deck, looking out at the stars. The rogue AI fleet had been repelled, but the event left a lasting impression on both of them. "You were amazing," Kieran said quietly. "I knew you had potential, but seeing it in action, it's something else entirely." Lyra shook her head, smiling faintly. "I couldn't have done it without you. You guided me, trusted me, and that made all the difference." Kieran looked at her, a deep sense of respect and admiration in his eyes. "That's what humanity is. We thrive when we trust each other, when we recognize the worth in those others overlook. You are proof of that, Lyra." For a long while, they stood in silence, watching the stars. The battle had reminded them both of the fragility of life and the importance of courage, insight, and trust. Humanity's edge was not just in technology or strength. It was in the ability to see potential where others did not, to act with intelligence and heart. Lyra turned to Kieran. "Do you think there will be more threats?" she asked softly. "Undoubtedly," he replied. "The universe is vast, unpredictable. But with people like you, people who see the hidden patterns, who understand systems better than machines, we'll face whatever comes, and we'll survive." Lyra smiled, a genuine warmth in her expression. "Then we'll face it together." Kieran nodded. "Together." As the station settled back into its routine, both of them knew that this was only the beginning. Nova Haven had been tested, and they had emerged victorious, but greater challenges lay ahead. Humanity's survival often depended on recognizing hidden brilliance, and Kieran had seen it first in Lyra. The accidental encounter that had brought them together now seemed inevitable. Fate, perhaps, had chosen them both for this moment. And as they prepared for whatever came next, one thing was certain. Humanity's edge was not just in its technology, but in the courage to see value where others saw none. The victory over the rogue AI fleet had given Nova Haven a moment of relief, but the station remained on high alert. Kieran and Lyra had proven themselves indispensable, yet both knew this was only the beginning. Humanity's enemies were not always machines. They were forces of the universe that demanded adaptability, intelligence, and courage. That morning, the station's control hub was alive with activity. Engineers and crew members were repairing damage, recalibrating systems, and reviewing data from the recent attack. Kieran moved through the hub with purpose, checking on subsystems and assisting wherever he could, but his thoughts kept returning to Lyra. Her abilities had saved the station, but he sensed there was still untapped potential waiting to be discovered. He found her in the engineering lab, standing before the main console, reviewing logs from the previous night. Her brow was furrowed in concentration, her eyes scanning streams of numbers and patterns. Kieran approached quietly. "You're up early," he said, smiling. Lyra looked up, her expression calm. "I want to understand everything that happened," she replied. "If we face something like that again, I need to be ready." Kieran nodded. "Good, that's the right attitude. We can't rely on luck, only preparation, intelligence, and quick thinking." They began analyzing the data together, comparing system responses, attack patterns, and fleet behavior. Lyra's insight was extraordinary. She noticed small details others had missed. Micro-adjustments in the fleet's trajectory, subtle fluctuations in their energy usage, and predictable reactions to certain defensive maneuvers. Kieran realized that with her guidance, they could design strategies to not just survive future attacks, but to turn the tide in humanity's favor. "Look at this," Lyra said, pointing to a section of the display. "If we reroute power here, we can reinforce the outer shields. At the same time, if we adjust the drone's flight patterns to mimic random errors, the AI will miscalculate its targeting every time." Kieran's eyes widened. "That's brilliant. That kind of unpredictability could give us a huge advantage. No machine can fully predict human improvisation, and your intuition amplifies it." Lyra smiled faintly, her confidence growing. "I've seen patterns before, but this feels bigger. It's like the AI is testing everything we do, trying to learn. If we stay one step ahead, we can control the outcome." They worked tirelessly through the day, running simulations, testing responses, and refining strategies. Lyra's abilities were unmatched. She anticipated outcomes, corrected errors before they occurred, and discovered efficiencies Kieran had never considered. Every calculation she made was precise, yet there was an almost human creativity in her solutions. She didn't just follow logic. She invented new paths, finding brilliance hidden within the chaos of data. By evening, the station leadership gathered to review their new defensive plans. Kieran and Lyra presented their strategy, a combination of reinforced shields, adaptive drone patterns, and energy reroutes that leveraged the station's full potential. Some officers were skeptical, but the display of calculations and simulations left little room for doubt. This is unconventional," one officer said, "but the results speak for themselves. If implemented correctly, it could save countless lives." Lyra nodded, her calm voice carrying confidence. "It's not about unconventionality. It's about understanding the patterns and predicting outcomes. The AI learns quickly, but we can stay ahead if we anticipate its logic and act with creativity." Kieran stepped forward. "Lyra is right. Humanity's edge is not just technology. It's our ability to think, adapt, and trust in one another. We can overcome threats that seem impossible if we recognize talent and act decisively." The leadership agreed, and implementation began immediately. Crew members followed Lyra's guidance as she coordinated the station's systems with precision. Kieran assisted wherever he could, monitoring responses, stabilizing energy flows, and ensuring that all subsystems were functioning in harmony. The station felt alive, a coordinated network of human intelligence and ingenuity working together. Suddenly, the sensors detected movement near the outer colonies. Another group of AI scouts was approaching, smaller and faster than the previous fleet. The control hub erupted into activity, alarms blaring and warning lights flashing. Kieran glanced at Lyra, who was already analyzing the data, her fingers flying across the console. "They're testing us again," she said, her voice calm but urgent. "Their pattern is different this time. We need to adjust the shields and drones immediately or they'll breach the outer perimeter." Kieran nodded. "Do it. I've got your back." Lyra worked quickly, rerouting energy, adjusting drone formations, and predicting the AI's next moves. The small fleet attacked in waves, but each time, Lyra's calculations anticipated their trajectory. The drones intercepted incoming ships, shields absorbed energy spikes, and the outer modules remained intact. Every success reinforced the crew's confidence, but Kieran knew it was Lyra's insight that made the difference. Hours passed like minutes as the station faced wave after wave of attacks. Kieran and Lyra worked without pause, their teamwork seamless. He noticed how she remained composed under pressure, thinking clearly even as alarms screamed and warning lights flashed. Her intuition guided every decision, and Kieran adjusted his actions to complement hers. Together, they were unstoppable. Finally, the AI scouts retreated. Nova Haven had survived once again, not by brute force, but by intelligence, creativity, and human insight. The crew cheered, some in disbelief, as Lyra quietly returned to her console, checking systems and ensuring everything remained stable. Kieran approached her, exhaustion and admiration on his face. "You did it again," he said softly. "You saved the station just like before, but this time I think you've shown everyone your true worth." Lyra looked up, a small smile on her lips. "I couldn't have done it without you guiding me. Your trust, it made all the difference." Kieran shook his head. "No, you guided me too. Your ability to see patterns, anticipate outcomes, and act with confidence, it's extraordinary. Humanity's edge is in people like you, Lyra. We survive not because we are stronger than machines, but because we think, adapt, and act with courage." As the station settled into quiet again, Kieran and Lyra walked along the observation deck, watching the stars. The universe stretched endlessly before them, vast and unpredictable, yet full of potential. "You really think humanity can survive anything?" Lyra asked softly. Kieran smiled. "We can as long as we recognize hidden talent, trust each other, and act with intelligence and courage. That's what makes us human. That's our edge." Lyra nodded, her gaze on the stars. "Then we'll face whatever comes together." Kieran reached out and gently rested his hand on hers. "Together," he agreed. For the first time since her arrival, Lyra felt a sense of belonging. She realized that her abilities were not mistakes, not anomalies to be ignored. They were strengths, gifts that could protect lives and shape the future. And Kieran had seen it from the start. As Nova Haven resumed normal operations, Kieran returned to his lab, exhausted but determined. He thought about the challenges ahead, the threats, the unknown dangers of the universe, the unpredictable AI and natural forces. Humanity would face many trials, but with people like Lyra, they could rise above any obstacle. Lyra, meanwhile, stayed at her console, reviewing data and preparing for the next potential threat. She understood now that her value was not just in solving problems, but in guiding humanity toward solutions no one else could see. Kieran's trust had given her confidence, and together they had created a system where human ingenuity could overcome the impossible. The station hummed quietly around them, a living network of human determination and intelligence. Nova Haven had survived, and its people had witnessed something extraordinary. Humanity's edge was not in brute strength or advanced technology alone. It was in the courage to trust, the ability to see potential, and the brilliance of those who others overlooked. Kieran and Lyra knew that the universe would continue to test them, but they also knew that together they could face any challenge. Nova Haven was more than a station. It was a testament to human resilience, intelligence, and the power of seeing worth where others did not. And as the stars twinkled silently in the distance, both of them understood one simple truth. Humanity's survival depended not just on machines or weapons, but on people like Lyra and the faith of those who recognized their hidden brilliance. The days following the rogue AI attack were filled with both celebration and preparation. Nova Haven had survived, but everyone knew that the universe held more unknown dangers. Kieran and Lyra had proven themselves, yet both understood that their work was far from over. Humanity's strength lay not in machines alone, but in people, people who could think, adapt, and recognize brilliance where others overlooked it. Early one morning, Kieran found Lyra in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. The station was quiet, a rare calm between the flurry of repairs and simulations. She looked thoughtful, almost reflective. "You're up early," Kieran said softly, stepping beside her. Lyra turned, her expression calm but serious. "I keep thinking about what's next," she admitted. "The AI fleet retreated, but I know they, or something like them, will return. We need to be ready." Kieran nodded. "Exactly. Survival isn't just about winning one battle. It's about preparation, understanding, and recognizing potential. That's what humans do best. We learn, we adapt, and we grow stronger." Lyra studied him quietly. "I've never really been seen before. Most people overlooked me, ignored me, even doubted me. But you saw my worth from the start." Kieran smiled faintly. "I didn't just see your worth, I trusted it. And your talent saved this station. Humanity often misses the value of those who don't fit the expected mold. You're proof that our edge lies in recognizing hidden potential." Her eyes softened. "Thank you, Kieran, for believing in me." Their conversation was interrupted by the station alarm. But this time it was not urgent. It was a scheduled test of Nova Haven's defense systems. Kieran and Lyra moved quickly to the control hub, ready to implement the latest strategies they had designed. The hub was already filled with engineers, officers, and technicians. They glanced at Lyra with new respect, their earlier skepticism replaced by acknowledgement of her unique abilities. Kieran noticed their change, but he didn't dwell on it. Recognition was valuable, but what mattered most was readiness. Lyra stepped to the main console, her hands flying across the controls with practiced precision. Kieran watched her, assisting when needed, but allowing her intuition to guide their actions. The simulation began, a test of the station's defenses against a theoretical AI strike. Lyra analyzed each wave of simulated attacks, rerouting energy, adjusting drone formations, and strengthening shields in ways that human calculations alone could not predict. Kieran observed as the crew followed her lead, learning from her methods. Even seasoned engineers were amazed at how she could predict outcomes, respond instantly, and implement solutions that minimized damage. Hours passed, and by the end of the simulation, the station's systems had successfully repelled every attack. The crew erupted in applause, and Kieran felt a swell of pride. Not for himself, but for Lyra, for what she had accomplished, and for the example she had set. A senior officer approached, his expression serious but respectful. "Lyra, your skills are remarkable. You've demonstrated what we all suspected and more. You are an asset to Nova Haven and to humanity itself." Lyra nodded quietly, humility in her posture but pride in her eyes. "I just do what I can. The station, the people, it's all connected. I just try to understand the patterns and respond." Kieran stepped forward. "She does more than respond," he said firmly. "She anticipates, she saves lives. She embodies humanity's edge, the ability to see possibilities where others see none and the courage to act on them. That's why she is invaluable." The officer nodded, finally understanding the depth of what Kieran had been saying all along. "Indeed. Your abilities, combined with your dedication, have proven that human ingenuity remains our greatest strength." The recognition brought a quiet satisfaction to Lyra, but she remained focused on the bigger picture. Kieran noticed it in her eyes, a determination not to rest, not to rely on accolades, but to continue improving, learning, and preparing for the challenges ahead. After the formal acknowledgments, Kieran and Lyra returned to their workstations. Repairs continued, adjustments were made, and the station's systems were optimized based on their combined strategies. Yet even as they worked, Kieran could sense Lyra thinking beyond the immediate problems. She was already analyzing potential threats, studying energy flows, and considering improvements that no one else could imagine. "Lyra," Kieran said softly, "I want you to know what you've done goes beyond this station. You've shown humanity something important. Potential isn't always obvious. Sometimes it's quiet, unnoticed, waiting for someone to see it. That's what you've done for yourself, for Nova Haven, and for all of us." Lyra paused, looking at him with a mixture of surprise and gratitude. "I never thought of it that way," she admitted. "I just wanted to do what was right," Kieran smiled. "And that's exactly why it matters. Humanity succeeds not just through strength or numbers, but through courage, insight, and the willingness to act on what others miss. You've done that, and now everyone can see it." As night fell over Nova Haven, the station floated silently above a distant planet. Lights glimmered along the corridors, reflecting in the observation windows, while the stars stretched endlessly beyond. Kieran and Lyra stood together, gazing out at the universe. "You really think humanity can survive anything?" Lyra asked quietly, echoing a question she had asked before. Kieran's gaze was steady. "I do, because we don't rely on luck. We rely on intelligence, creativity, and the ability to recognize the value in people who others overlook. That's our strength. That's why humans endure." Lyra smiled, a new confidence in her expression. "Then I'll continue to do my part. I want to help humanity survive, to see more of what we can accomplish." "You will," Kieran said. "And you won't do it alone. I'll be here and others will follow your example. The universe is vast and unpredictable, but humanity thrives on ingenuity, courage, and trust. That's why we'll face anything together." For a long while, they watched the stars in silence, feeling the weight of responsibility and the spark of hope. Nova Haven was more than a station. It was a symbol of human resilience, ingenuity, and the power of recognizing hidden potential. And in Lyra, Kieran had seen the very embodiment of that truth. Over the next few weeks, Nova Haven continued its preparations. New training programs were developed based on Lyra's methods, teaching crew members to anticipate patterns, think creatively, and act decisively. Kieran and Lyra led simulations, demonstrating the strategies that had saved the station and preparing for the possibility of future threats. Slowly, a culture of recognition and trust grew within the station. Crew members learned to value insight, intuition, and the quiet brilliance that often went unnoticed. Humanity's edge, its unique combination of intelligence, creativity, and courage, was becoming a living part of Nova Haven's operations. One afternoon, as Kieran and Lyra reviewed defense protocols, a message arrived from the outer colonies. It was a simple message of gratitude, expressing relief at the survival of the stations and appreciation for the leadership and skill that had protected them. Kieran read it aloud, smiling. The courage and brilliance of those who acted saved countless lives. Humanity's ingenuity remains our greatest shield. Lyra looked at him, her expression thoughtful. "It's strange," she said softly. "I never thought anyone would see me for what I can do, but now I feel like I belong, like my worth matters." Kieran nodded, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You always had worth, Lyra. I just saw it before anyone else did. Now the universe has seen it too." She smiled, a sense of pride and determination in her eyes. "Then I'll continue to use it, for the station, for humanity, for everyone." Kieran stepped back, watching her with admiration. Humanity's edge was not just technology or weapons. It was the people who saw potential, acted courageously, and trusted in one another. Lyra was proof of that truth, and together they had shown that even in the vast, uncertain universe, humanity could survive and thrive. As the station's systems hummed softly and the stars glimmered outside, Kieran and Lyra knew that their journey was far from over. Threats would come, challenges would arise, and the unknown would test them again. But they also knew that humanity's edge, its courage, creativity, and recognition of hidden brilliance, would endure. Nova Haven floated silently above the planet, a beacon of hope, preparation, and resilience. And within its corridors, two individuals, Kieran and Lyra, stood as a reminder of what humans could achieve when they believed in each other and acted with intelligence and heart. Together, they had faced the impossible. Together, they had survived. And together, they would continue to shape humanity's future among the stars. Because in the vast universe, when people see the worth in one another, they can accomplish anything.